Greetings, children of the screen, your friendly neighborhood nerd scum here, and once again, I am joined by the creator of Area 51, the HELIX Project, the proprietor of Pocket Watch Press, and the future legendary comic book creator, Trevor Fernandes-Lenkiewicz. Trevor, how's it going, man?
Good, man. Thank you for the kind introduction. It's great to hang out with you for a little bit.
Oh, yeah, man. I'm very happy to have you here and very happy to do the introduction. It's going to make me look great in like 10 years whenever you're one of the best comic book creators, you know? You're going to be like,
Let's
see,
hope
this
that's
guy
true.
knew what was up.
Yeah, let's knock on wood, everybody collectively.
Right on, man. So yeah, thanks for being here today. So I understand that you have got yourself a new book that is in the works, and you have a new Kickstarter that is up and running right now for that book.
Yeah, it's crazy. After 6 issues, 6 campaigns of the HELIX Project, we are now kind of swinging out of the gate with something entirely new, fresh, and different with Minutes to Midnight, and I couldn't be more excited. I think it is really the exhibition of everything I've learned over the course of well, the entirety of my first series. So I think people are gonna really dig it.
Sweet, man. Yeah. I mean, I know that I'm really excited for it. And guys, if you guys want to go and support that, there's going to be the link for the crowdfunding down in the description of this video right now. Or if you're watching on another form of social media, there will be a link attached. So definitely go and check that out. If you have not checked out Area 51, the HELIX Project, it is absolutely fantastic. And Trevor and his creative team definitely deserve the support. So why don't we go ahead and jump into this so that the audience knows? Why don't you just tell us a little bit about Minutes to Midnight?
Yeah, so this is a 64-page collection of comic book short stories, all written by me. The overarching title is Minutes to Midnight, the Hour Between Life and Death, but there are 4 sub-story titles with their own genres and tales to tell, but they're all sort of loosely connected by this idea of theme. I wanted to do a sort of annual that is centered around a theme that I feel like correlates with the time of day, and what better way to kick this off than at midnight, the end of the old day, the beginning of a new, this new horizon in which the perspective that you choose to carry with you from one day to another can mean life or death. That can either be the downfall of the coming day, or that can be how you get your head start. And so, we've all been there where we're up late at night and we're either marinating in all of the negativity of what's come before, or we kind of find that moment of silent late night clairvoyance and are able to work through our problems. And so these stories sort of exemplify that. They play with the theme of perspective and or a lack thereof in very different ways. Whether it's a paranoia-induced detective thriller, a Dante-esque historical fantasy, a boy, I'm forgetting my own stories, a supernatural coming-of-age story, or a sci-fi futuristic interpersonal drama. Just taking big creative swings with some of the best untapped talent in the comic book industry and trying to ultimately tell stories that matter, stories that move people. And the great thing about this format was that the stories were allowed to be as long or as short as they needed to be. There were originally supposed to be 6 stories in this collection, and what ended up happening was that 2 of these stories, as I was writing them, just sort of evolved and changed and cannibalized them. So even though you're getting the same amount of context, I think it just goes to show that what came first were these stories and these characters and these journeys that they're going on. And at the end of the day, that was the priority.
Right on, man. Well, that's awesome. That sounds like you found a really interesting way to be able to play in all the different little playgrounds that you want while still keeping it under one banner and presenting something that is fluid and conceptually consistent.
Yeah, yeah, to a degree, for sure. And I also, as a young creator, as much as I love my first series and I love everything it stood for and everything it did, I never want somebody to look at me and think that that's all that I do. Sure, my academic background caters to a sci-fi story, but I wanted to show that I was versatile enough as a storyteller that I could play in all of these different spaces and employ the tools of the genre to tell stories that work within those sandboxes, and might even play with a little sand from outside of the sandbox.
Nice. I also, and I imagine this was only probably kind of peripherally something that was intentional, but I really also appreciate the Minutes to Midnight coming out from Pocket Watch Press with the Pocket Watch or the clock theme and motif going on. How
Mm.
conscious a decision was that whenever you were, was it like at the beginning of it, or was it something where when you started having that idea, you were like, oh, that's a really nice connection?
It was kind of always there from the beginning. You know, this, like I said, I would like annually to do a collection of short stories that play with a time of day, because that was my sort of way back to the title of my company. And so, you know, beginning with Minutes to Midnight, it's really funny too because this collection and the collection to follow, hopefully in 2024, are both unintentionally, they unintentionally share names with a well-known album and with a well-known piece of music. So this one being Minutes to Midnight, everybody was like, ah, was this like intentionally mentioned, like a callback to Linkin Park? And I'm like, absolutely not. And then ironically, the next collection is going to be called The House of the Rising Sun, which was I love that song, but
Yeah.
was an incredibly unintentional title grab.
Right on, man. So yeah, like I'm glad that you had mentioned like all the things that you learned on the previous book, because one of like as someone who was watching as the book came out and watching the individual issues progress, one of my favorite things was seeing how much you were growing as a creator, like issue by issue, and you can just see that as you were, as so much is the case in any artistic endeavor, like doing the thing, you learned so much more than you ever even could have considered. What would you say off of that book was like the biggest thing that you learned that you're now carrying over that lesson onto this one?
That's a good question. I think first and foremost, I learned that I could do it. I learned that I could tell a story and have a cohesive beginning, middle, and end. And that honestly, ending a story was my biggest anxiety. And here I am starting and ending four all in one book. So that I was able to build and knowing, okay, like I have my finger on the pulse of how a story can move and flow and eventually reach its ending and have that feel natural and organic for the characters. And so that was definitely a major part of it. Um, I think I also, you know, I just being that the Helix Project was my first book, I grew to really understand the medium in a way that I didn't before. Even though I felt like I had a solid comprehension through having done reviews and being analytical, you don't really know until you do it. And so over the course of writing six issues, I became a lot more intimate with my tendencies, my collaborators' tendencies, what we're capable of, and sort of maybe some areas where I think we could stretch our understanding of form and how form impacts the function of the story. And that is on full display here. You know, some of these stories are really pushing at least my understanding of how page design can affect not only the pacing of the story but the atmosphere and the tone and the mood, and maybe make some further implications thematically in a grander sense. And so I think the lessons learned from Area 51, the Helix Project, largely have to do with gaining confidence and feeling feeling more intimately aware of the medium and what the medium allows and how I can abide by the rules but know when to break them at the right times.
Okay, yeah, no, that's definitely kind of, I guess, like to cheesily sum it up, being fluid to a certain extent, or be, to use the Bruce Lee quote, to be like water, you take the shape that is around you that you need to take in order to do the thing you need to do. And yeah, I find that like in creative endeavors, especially collaborative ones where there are so many people contributing to it, that is super important. And even knowing that going in is very, like you said, very different than knowing it from practicing it. That's a good lesson. And it's good that you learned it on your first one. You'd be surprised, at least from my side of things in filmmaking, how many people I've worked with who are doing like their fifth or sixth thing, and then they're like, "Oh, yeah, maybe, mm-hmm, yes."
Yeah, and I think my understanding of comics as a format will hopefully continue to grow and change and adjust based on whatever the project needs and maybe based on the experiences that I've had before. So I look forward to just seeing how my approach changes from project to project in the future because it was so hard to pinpoint quote unquote like my style of play, because it was my first thing and I was constantly, adjusting and shifting and changing. And well, I hope I don't stray too far from that general sort of prognosis. I do think that it's going to be interesting to see how my tendencies will evolve and maybe turn into slightly more of a routine, to see what becomes foundational in everything I do and what is going to be fluid and malleable based on project to project.
Right on. Yeah. And I do find that with a lot of creators, like the key to it seems like the key to them finding their voice is learning how to be that adaptable while still maintaining the self.
Hmm.
You know, it's one of those things of like you can have your own voice, which is very clear and very beautiful and cuts through to people. But if you're unable to adapt in a split second and maintain that voice, then it really kind of doesn't matter as much. Well, you can still tell a decent story, but you're never going to tell something that's groundbreaking or something that is iconic. You have to be able to find that way to work with the structures you're playing with, but still maintain that voice and make sure that it's true.
Right.
And I imagine so much of that fluid process has to do with the people that you're working with,
Mm.
how they affect and shape the story along with you. On your last book, you had an absolutely fantastic crew of international creators that you put together to kind of achieve your vision. Who do you have working with you on this book?
Oh man, it's crazy because going from working with one creative team to four all at once was definitely an adjustment, and one that I underestimated. So while there are some familiar faces, there are also a lot of new and friendly faces. So for the paranoia-induced detective thriller titled Reflections and Other Little Devils, I will be working once again with the incredibly talented Samuel Ibunze, who wrapped up the Helix project. He drew interiors and covers for the last two issues, and he was an absolute powerhouse. And then we have the incredible Jerome Gagnon lettering that story for us. And I think the Reflections very much exemplifies the mindset of experimentation for me because Sam and I had worked together and we had expanded and grown rather rapidly from the time that we started that fifth issue to the time that we ended issue six. And so I felt the most comfortable taking big creative swings and making creative decisions that were in part more of a question than a um statement. Can we do this? Will this work? Like if we're telling a story and the detective is going through this case and we want to implicate something about his ex-marriage, how do we frame, the sort of backstory on the ex-marriage? Well, we watch those memories play out as reflections within artifacts of tragedy within the crime and within the crime scene. Can we do, so we really went out there and we really took some big swings and so that was really exciting. But then we have some fresh faces like the incredible Stepsy, who is doing these beautifully emotive colored pencil and watercolor interiors for the marvelous misadventures of the melancholy man, which is a really, really lovely supernatural coming of age story wherein a foundational figure in comics history actually appears as a meta character. Um, so that was incredibly exciting to be able to do. And Steph just has this vibrance and vitality to her work that really brings the human emotion to the forefront. We have Marcio Freire, who is the interior artist for Time Fleeting War Immortal. Marcio was actually my colorist on the Helix project, and he had done the C covers for issues 5 and 6 of that series. And so it was great to be able to evolve our creative relationship into something like this. And so, he and I are telling this divine comedy inspired historical fantasy. And this was one of the two stories that expanded, that doubled in size. And the interesting thing about this story and how that changed was that the increase in page count didn't serve this story simply by being an expansion, but the increase in page count added layers to the story that straight up did not exist before. Like this story really, I think, became maybe my most thematically complicated thing I've ever written. And so that's incredibly exciting. And Jerome is also going to be lettering that story for us. And finally, we have, oh, and forgive me, I forgot to mention that we have the incredible Micah Myers lettering the Melancholy Man story. And finally, we have the Bear Market Businessman with incredible interior art by Ryan Best. He just has these beautiful sweeping lines that he uses to construct form. And despite accomplishing it in a very different way, I think he maintains a level of vitality and expression similar to what Steph does. And I think it works very well for a story like this because it is so focused as being an interpersonal drama. And so, that's what rounds it out. And being able to work with all these different collaborators with all of these different styles and methodologies to the process, I think was incredibly rewarding, and taught me a lot about myself as a creative, and just about how I can maintain that flexibility, like you had mentioned earlier, while still ensuring that my creative voice is present and identifiable on each one of these tales.
Right on, man. Well, that sounds awesome. That sounds like you put together a really awesome team to help you knock out these very unique and very different stories. Sounds really interesting, and I'm definitely looking forward to it. I'm kind of curious, do you feel comfortable going a little more in depth into what each of those stories entails?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to. So the first story in the collection is a 22 pager, reteaming myself and Samuel Iwunze from the end of the Helix Project. It's called Reflections and Other Little Devils, and it is a grim and moody mystery featuring Detective Carlos Mancebo as he investigates a string of suicides that are related to this stretch of property involved in a failed eminent domain seizure attempt. And what he discovers throughout reopening this 20-year-old cold case kind of forces these drug-laden flashbacks that kind of point him in the direction of this Saw-like murder case that puts his long-dead marriage into question. And so Carlos's story kind of spirals into one of perception, control, and addiction. And this is the one that I had mentioned prior, where I think we're really, really stretching our understanding of the comic book form and how that can affect the storytelling. And then after that, we have The Marvelous Misadventures of the Melancholy Man, which, aesthetically and in terms of the content is very different from everything else I've done and everything else in this collection. It's the only story in this collection that's presently planned to be syndicated throughout my upcoming sort of Pocket Watch Press annuals. So every year I would like to continue this story, as it is a supernatural coming of age about an empathic boy who turns others' woes into gold. It's inspired by Shakespeare's King Midas and the Golden Touch. But this Midas, our protagonist, kind of has to learn to find balance in a life where a simple touch could mean healing someone's mind at the cost of his own, or vice versa. And so this first story, albeit innocent, kind of finds him initially entangled in this childhood conflict that really tests his ability to direct his moral pendulum, and begins to give him an implication of the consequences of his abilities. And again, you get a sort of meta side character who will be familiar to any longtime comic book fan, but ultimately, this story kind of weaves into a metatextual exploration of self-sacrifice and self-preservation. And this is one of the shorter stories, this chapter at least, in the collection. And then you have Time Fleeting More Immortal, which is another one that ballooned to about 20 pages. It is a Dante Alighieri-esque historical fantasy that follows two immortal soldiers as they reconvene throughout every great war in human history to settle a conflict that spans from the beginning of time, before time was measured, to the end of all existence as we know it. And ultimately, this story revolves around this idea that the landscape of war is constantly changing and that adversity is often conditioned by these ideals that are incredibly temporary or fleeting, if you will. And of course, that at the end of the day, whether we're immortal or not, uh, we never quite have enough time. And so this really comes to grips with mortality and what it means to grow and change as a human being. And kind of rounding out the collection is The Bear Market Businessman, which is a sci-fi futuristic interpersonal drama that takes place centuries in the future of a neon-adorned New York City as it weighs down upon the richest man on the planet, who somehow has everything and nothing at all. And on the edge, this character must learn that in order to truly survive, you have to choose to live. And there is an element of choice and choosing how to live. And so, yeah, this one is probably my most emotionally honest story I've ever written. But I also think in some ways it's one of the simplest.
Strange how that often does seem to be the case, you know. Somehow, whenever you find that story that is like so true and so like intrinsically a part of who you are and your being, like a lot of times they are the most simple because you don't need all the fancy bells and whistles that you usually use to draw a reader in and all that kind of stuff. You know, you can just literally do the thing that is the most rewarding as a creator and let the work speak for itself, let the story and the emotions and the connection between the person taking in the art and the art just be what it is.
Yeah, yeah, I very much think that's the case. And yeah, I mean, I'm just excited for people to really feast their eyes on these stories. There's some incredible art in there from collaborators, on a global scale, and I think it's me kind of firing on all cylinders. Like I said, it's the exhibition of all of my efforts and all of my education on craft from my previous book cranked up to an entirely new level. This is me creating stories for the love of creating stories, because it's certainly not commercial. There's no marketability for this thing, but what I do hope are that people who stumble upon it recognize that it's made by people who love comics and it's made by people that want to stretch their understanding of what comics can do and their understanding of how to amplify these sort of complex thoughts and feelings that we all go through and find ways to filter that through the lens of something that might be entertaining or shocking or scary or heartwarming. This is easily the most ambitious thing I've done to date, and it's something I'm incredibly proud of. So I hope anybody listening decides to give it a chance.
Hell yeah, man. It definitely sounds like it is well worth a chance. I mean, you just described, like you said, very different stories. You know, it's going to be from, again, having seen what you've produced in terms of physical material from your previous campaign and everything, it's going to be great materials. It's going to look good. It's going to read good. It's just going to, dude, yes, I'm in. I am in. I'm in.
Appreciate that. Yeah, and for those of you that are interested in dipping your toes into my first project, they will be available in the add-on menu. So whether you are a fierce collector and you want physical copies and or variant covers, they're available. However, if you're a digital reader, you can pick up my entire digital catalog, which is all of Area 51, the Helix Project, the new editions of the first two issues, which feature behind-the-scene material, as well as obviously this brand new project, Minutes to Midnight. You can get all that, all 228 pages for $19. Or if you just want to sample my new work, it's $10. But I think at 19, I'm valuing that extra 160 something pages at $9. So I think it's very much worth sinking your teeth into.
That's better than you're going to get from Marvel or DC in 99% of the cases, you know. And again, like quality all around. I feel bad now because I didn't really set up my space in a way that really showcases it, but I do actually. I've got the Area 51 shirt on, which
Hell yeah.
funny because this is actually just what I've been wearing around the house for the last few days because it's so comfortable. And then I was getting ready to get ready for this, and I was like, I should probably look. And I was like, oh, I'm good. All right, cool. But then, of course, yeah, my camera setup doesn't really allow for a full view of it. But yeah,
Yeah,
and
I did peep that that issue 3 cover right behind your right ear.
oh yeah, right here. Yeah, it's part of the set. So in every video. So it's not just the books that are really high quality. Like I've seen all of his merchandise, like whenever we were out doing a con last year, and it's all high quality stuff. This shirt is comfy as fuck, dude. Like I was saying, it's a cool shirt. I just wear it. The book sounds amazing. I know that the perks people are going to get are going to be solid and people will be happy with them. Like, yes, I'm down. And all of you at home, get down.
Yes, I appreciate that. We've got a lot of really cool rewards too for this campaign. Some returning items from previous Helix Project campaigns, but also some new ones, you know. Not sure if my camera will focus all that well, but we've got like a host of enamel pins like this Be Dangerous, Read Comics pin. Yeah, so that's pretty cool.
Add ass.
Yeah, yeah, I actually love this pin. I love how that came out. And it's not just related to specific projects. So I think this is a great item for any comic book lover, if I'm honest.
Hell yeah. That would go great on a battle vest.
Specifically on a battle vest.
Well, you know, with me, everything's a battle vest. So
True.
everything goes on the battle vest. So other than the pen and then obviously copies of the book itself, why don't we just go ahead and let the people at home know, like, what are some of the tiers that you've got going for this crowdfunding?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I mentioned before, for those of you that want the most bang for your buck, we have an entire digital library of my work for $19. But we also do have bundles if you are a hardcore comic book collector. You want all 3 variants of this massive 64-page comic, drawn by, again, like artists from all around the world. I mean, our A cover, beautifully done by Marcio Freri, who does one of the interior stories. Our B cover, Samuel Iwunze, who also does one of the interiors, and then our C cover by a comic book rock star out of London named Fraser Irving. You can grab all 3 of these covers for $75. So that's, you know, what is that? 180 something pages, 192 pages, I think, worth of stuff. We also have custom designed t-shirts similar to what you guys see on Corey there, but with the Minutes to Midnight logo art prints that are comparable to what you can see behind him there on set. But we've also got stuff for the comic book retailer out there that is wanting to put this book on the shelves, and we're actually giving a discount that is comparable to what you would get at Diamond or Lunar or any of the major large distributors. But for the absolute nutcase, and for those of you who are somehow watching this video and going, man, I actually might really like this guy. Well, we have an I Love Comics pack, which is almost every variant cover of everything I've ever done, plus digital copies of everything as well. So we have that. We also have, you know, individual copies of various variant covers and books in the add-on menu. So if you don't want this crazy bundle, but you're like, oh my God, I like that cover and I like that cover, you can always parse through those after you select your base tier. For the fledgling comic book creator, writer, artist, inker, colorist, letterer, I'm also offering private portfolio reviews. So in addition to getting early digital access to Minutes to Midnight and the Helix Project and covers and art prints and an exclusive t-shirt, you also get a private editorial consultation where prior to the meeting, I will receive a portfolio or a piece of work and give you hard, in-depth notes and details and thoughts and constructive criticism, and then go over it with you privately on a call and sort of discuss where I'm coming from and where I think the next steps should be taken. And that also gives you carte blanche to ask me whatever questions you want about the industry on a production side or a creative side or whatever you'd like, really. I think it's important to be able to share my experiences as a young up and coming creator. And I think it's a unique opportunity to be able to, you know, bring that around to those who might need it. And then we have, of course, as always, a really lovely producer tier where you get a bunch of stuff, whether it's variant covers or art prints, t-shirts, pins, but you also get credited as an official producer on the inside of the book. You get an exclusive producer design piece of merchandise, which normally is a hoodie, but seeing as how we're entering the summer, I felt that a little inappropriate. So we have a really, really cool Reflections and Other Little Devils t-shirt featuring some of the artwork from the B cover. You get free signatures on all of your books. You get a small batch Q&A with myself and one of the artists from the title. And then we also have an executive producer tier, which in addition to all of that, gets you a brand new exclusive art print, a commission from Samuel Iwunze, who draws Reflections and Other Little Devils and finished Area 51, the Helix Project. And you get regarded as one of our biggest supporters as an executive producer for the rest of your life. And then finally, which I'm hoping it'll still be up by the time this video drops, we have one spot left to get drawn into this book. So in addition to almost everything I've just named, you get to be featured very prominently by one of our incredibly talented artists. And let me tell you, we've got some great cameos already in this book. Brian Buendia of Comic Breakdown has gotten drawn into Reflections and Other Little Devils. His likeness has actually gotten drawn onto King Harold in the Norman Conquest, which I think is really cool, with an
Nice.
arrow flying into his eye socket. So, just like I think that's a really unique moment, to be able to immortalize yourself in a piece of art and in something, so early in my career, because I think there will probably come a point where I won't be able to do that again, unfortunately. So, a lot of unique opportunities. Again, we have all of these great add-ons where you can add individual covers or books to your rewards package. Various enamel pins, whether it's our Be Dangerous Read Comics piece. We have gold and silver pocket watch press pin and sort of more Helix Project referential pieces. We also have the option for you to get an official CGC Signature Series copy of my work. So for those that are unfamiliar, if you've seen any collectibles in those hard plastic vacuum sealed cases with a sort of grade number on them, you'll get that. But you also get a 100% authenticated and validated signature on one of those items as well. So there's just a bunch of stuff, whether you're a pure reader or a collector or somewhere in between, or maybe, you don't like anything that I have to say about stories and you just want some cool pins and prints and t-shirts. They're all there for you.
Right on, dude. That is an absolutely fantastic selection of perks for this campaign. Man, the book sounds awesome. The campaign's got tons of stuff going for it. Me personally, I can't see how this could possibly go wrong. Like, it is, I know, famous last words, but dude, like, you put so much hard work into what you do. Like, you deserve the support more than any indie comic creator that I personally have met. And believe me, here on the YouTube channel, I don't review very many books, and I get sent a lot of indie books, and so I've seen a lot of them. I think that if I thought otherwise, I would say so.
I appreciate that, man. Candor is hard to come by, and no, I mean I appreciate it twofold, because this is frankly, it's me taking a risk. Very early in my career, I think the safe bet would have been to go into another series that was maybe more familiar to my audience, the people who are proven to want to spend money on something like Area 51, the Helix Project. But I kind of led with that nagging creative scream in the back of my head, and I wanted to make something that was artistically as pure as humanly possible. And so if that's what people are in the market for, I hope they consider giving it a look. And I think you can do that and support it rather affordably, if I do say so myself.
And for no other reason than that pure reason for doing it, I think it deserves the support. So once again, people at home, the link for the crowdfunding is going to be attached to this video, as well as all of Trevor's socials. Definitely go check out the campaign, support the campaign, check him out on his social media, and you'll be able to get updated on whenever he's coming to do signings in cities or going to cons and all that kind of stuff. Trevor, again, good luck with the campaign, and thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me.
Brother, it's great to hang out as always, and I look forward to the next time I have something to bring you, man.
Right on, man. Right on, children on the screen. Thank you very much for taking this time to listen to us talk about this. And one more time, support Minutes to Midnight. Dirt's come out.